So, Father Thomas Keating said this: silence is the language God speaks, and everything else is a bad translation. Huh. Wow. Going within, that's the key, right? Going within and listening to that still small voice that Reverend Kimberly addressed during that meditation. God speaks through the order and the design that we find in creation. Also, it speaks through that beauty that absolutely does surround us. If we look up at the stars or these California hills with all of these wildflowers, don't you see that fingerprint of God? It's so beautiful. And the more we focus on the wonder of creation, the more we know that these things don't create themselves. They didn't come out of nowhere. The intricate design of creation and the way the universe appears to be so fine-tuned to life tells us it couldn't possibly happen by chance. Silence does not mean divine inactivity. Quite the opposite. We often will hear people say that, how do you talk to God? How do you hear God? Well, one reason people may not be able to hear is because it's so easy to be distracted by the busyness of life, right? Those everyday distractions. We're bombarded with noise, with an overabundance of outside stimuli, be it the TV or the radio or cell phones, right? News, 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 news. We get overwhelmed with that. And we spend a lot of time responding to that stimuli. And as we do that, we drown out that still small voice that lies within each of us. And then we begin to lose ourselves. We're off balance. And we can't quite figure out what's going on. And the next thing you know, it becomes quite difficult to get in touch with your own needs because you're so busy with this over here, dealing with all that noise, dealing with those distractions. Without taking time to enter into that silence, our focus becomes outside of us. And that's when we start beginning to feel anxious or stressed. And we may not even realize what's happening. We may not even realize that we are so wrapped up in stuff outside that it's affecting us on the inside. So as we travel this spiritual journey, we find ourselves intuitively going inward more and more. We come to realize that we're unable to find what it is we're searching for out there. It's difficult to go into the silence when we are looking outside of ourselves for that which is already within. We need to reconnect and do it through that silence with our higher self. And we do that because as we progress on our spiritual path, we realize more and more that those answers that we're looking for, that we're searching for, that we so need and want and desire are truly within in that silence. That's when it becomes possible to move forward on our path and tap into that innate wisdom. Because you have it, it really is there. That inner sanctuary is filled with purity, with wonder. It's a place of peace and comfort and warmth, sanctuary, safety. And we each and all have it. We just need to go within and connect with it. Entering into the silence is simply making connection with God, Source, Spirit, your higher self. That's all that means. Because deep within, there exists a place of perfect peace. That place beyond all emotions, that place beyond all desires. A great way to reconnect with your higher self is to be in that silence and do it through meditation, through your conscious contact with God. It's a great way to strengthen your ability to hold on to present moment awareness. Be here now. When we remain consciously connected to that power center of peace and poise, life is so much easier. It is so much richer. Through meditation, we move into that place beyond those thoughts, beyond those emotions, beyond what's going on in the exterior world. It brings clarity and grace to our actions. It keeps us centered. It keeps us grounded. It keeps us balanced, and it keeps us connected to that which created us. Any experience that you have that brings you into contact with that higher self, with that quiet place, that silent level of awareness, can be called meditation. It doesn't have to be anything formal. It just needs to be when you're still, when you're quiet. And what I have found, interestingly enough, is that many people are uncomfortable with that silence. And that is why we allow so much stimuli in the first place. Because you figure you don't have to deal with self if you have all this other outside junk coming in. It's not very helpful, by the way. What if we don't like who we are? Then we can shut it out by running away from ourselves, by bringing all this other stuff in. However, what I have found to be the absolute truth is this. This is heavy duty, right? Wherever you go, there you are. You're going to take it with you. So it's best to open up and participate and be with whatever's going on. When you transcend that aversion to silence, you're also going to transcend other areas of unhappiness in your life. And what a beautiful gift that is. It's in the silence that the remembrance of our connection with God lies. That's where we can feel it, experience, and really know that it is the truth. And here's some more really good news. You don't have to learn a single thing in order to communicate and to make conscious contact with God, with your higher self. You already have everything you need. It's already there. There is one rule that you must adhere to be able to have this conscious connection. You have to take the responsibility for opening up that communication. God's not going to come down and tap you on the shoulder, right? You are going to make that effort. With all the activity that's going on in our lives, many of us do feel that fundamental need for that silence, for that inner peace, for moments of reflection. And going into the silence helps us with that. Reduces our stress by teaching us how to turn away from worries that trouble us throughout the day. Anybody here not have worries or trouble throughout the day? It's an opportunity to spend time with and by ourselves. And spending any amount of time in quieting in our mind or focusing on the present moment makes us more relaxed, and it makes us better decision makers. So many times we all suffer from our own negative thoughts, and any form of being in the silence can teach us to control those thoughts, can teach us to watch them as they pass by and be present. And that brings our chaotic mind into a very peaceful place. When we live in that chaotic mind, it's so easy to get distracted by small irritations. Maybe we find it intolerable to wait in a line for any length of time. Or we get upset by something small someone maybe said or did. Or maybe driving in somebody cutting you off like they did this morning, right? We've all had that happen. And instead of responding or reacting to that, being with it and just knowing that I'm here now, all is well, and then moving on. The solution is not to avoid those irritations, those small things, because no matter what you do, they're going to continue to happen. That's just part of the way it is. The effective solution to that is to develop that detachment from being annoyed, to keep things in perspective. It's a powerful benefit of making a daily habit to go into that silence and to be still. Because we detach ourselves, that's where we detach ourselves from those insignificant yet irritating actions. The detachment I'm talking about is not indifference. It's just that we're able to maintain balance in the midst of life's inevitable ups and downs. It's part of our being human. When we live in our thinking mind, we tend to get really preoccupied with either the past or the future. When we learn to silence our mind, we stay in that present moment awareness. We realize then too, we have far more potential than we had previously believed. We are more than we thought. Human nature generally looks for meaning in life through external events and through other people a lot of times. Our connection, though, with God, Source, Spirit, shows us that we can gain a greater understanding of life through knowing who we are. And that's what we do in that silence. We can gain a new perspective on life, untainted by our own egoic perception. All that to say, the power of silence isn't empty. It is truly full of answers. Thank you.
I'm very grateful to be here. And that was just beautiful. I wanted more. Thank you. So when Reverend Danelle invited me to come speak here again, of course, I said yes. I love being here with all of you. And I got a little giggle when she gave me the topic, the power of silence, because my life, since the last time I was here, has been full, busy. And I can attest to what you've said. As you were, and I had no idea what she was going to say this morning, by the way. I mean, we just briefly spoke, and then, so what a treat that you were talking about meditation. I felt the whole time I was there, like, speak, sister, preach, because that's true. That's what gets me through, are the quiet times, because my days are very, very full with my new job. And the quiet, oh, good stuff. Yeah, so thank you. That was beautiful. So here we go. So when she gave me the topic, the very first thing that came to my mind was many, many years ago, I'm guessing at least 15 or more, was the first time I went to Agape Spiritual Center, which was in Culver City at the time. They've moved now. And it was far more than I was anticipating. First of all, nobody told me that the parking situation would be what it was, and the walk that goes along with that, and the Disneyland lines to get into the building. It was quite the experience. Needless to say, by the time that I got in the room, there was standing room only, and the sanctuary only seats around 1,200, so it was packed. And then I was like up against the back of the wall, right? And speaking of what you said is so true. When we have that ability, A Course in Miracles says, I don't know what anything is for. And when we have that ability, instead of getting irritated that I didn't get a seat because I didn't know, I could have gone into victim mode, right? However, it was such a blessing that I got to stand at the back, because I got to see the sea of people sitting there, and there were people who were glowing, and it was just so beautiful to take all of that in. And I say this because there were a few people in particular who just had something about them. Do you ever meet people like that, where there was just like that little something, and you just wanted to know them? And I remember thinking to myself, I want to know that person and that person and that. And it wasn't that they were sitting on the front row. I had no idea who these people are. There was just an energy about them. And I just thought, I really want to know these people, and perhaps, if I'm really blessed, maybe they'll even mentor me. Who knows, right? So flash forward, I end up in class, and one of those people happens to be my teacher. And this was a Science of Mind class. And I was sharing this with him. His name is Reverend Nirvana. He's passed now. And for anyone who's watching this and knows Reverend Nirvana, you'll get this exchange, because I shared with him that experience of seeing him in the audience, and just there was something about him, and I really wanted him to know him and be my teacher. And he was so honored when I shared that with him. And what he said to me was a quote from Emerson, and the paraphrase is, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is what you do speaks so loudly that I can't hear a word you're saying. We've all heard this. It's like actions speak louder than words, right? So I was intrigued. I thought, okay, let me learn about Emerson. Who's this Emerson guy? Most people here, I'm guessing, know Emerson. Yes, raise of hands. Yes, we all know Emerson. Yeah, okay, all right. So I did not. And I did a little research, and I found that back in 1875, he wrote something called Letters and Social Aims. And I'm just going to read a little excerpt, and I found that quote in there. He said it a little differently. Over time, things get changed around, modernized a bit. But this is the original quote. He said, "Let us not look east and west for materials of conversation, but rest in presence and in unity." Just take that in for a second. Rest in presence and unity. A just feeling will fast enough supply fuel for discourse, if speaking be more grateful than silence. When people come to see us, we foolishly prattle, lest we be inhospitable, but things said for conversation are chalk eggs. Don't say things. What you are stands over you the while and thunders so that I cannot hear what you say to the contrary. So 1800s language, I know. So we have to translate this up a bit. And if I have to say, the first thing I was like, what's a chalk egg? Like, I don't even know what a chalk egg is. And so actually for this talk, I went online. I'm like, I still don't know. I know. What is it, right? But what I do think we can agree on is what he's saying is that making small talk has no power behind it. It's just foolish prattle, he says, right? And we feel like when we're hosting someone, or we got to yap and entertain, instead of just being present and really being with that person, right? And what does have power is what we are. That's where the power lies. What we are, he says, thunders so loudly. Right? And think about that. It thunders so loudly that it can actually create dissonance with what we are saying. They don't always match, right? And so that's what Reverend Nirvana was saying to me, and that he was so grateful, is that his spiritual practice of all that meditation and all the work that he's done over the years was lighting up his countenance enough that I could see him, right? Not from an egoic place, but just from a grateful place of, wow, it's working, yeah? So I have a little bit more that I want to share with you. So I became an Emerson fan, and as a birthday gift, I was given this original copy of Emerson, which is about over 100 years old. I obviously don't mark it up, but it was written in the 1800s, and then someone gifted this to an individual in 1912. And I do not know who this woman is, but I'm very grateful that someone in her estate donated her book to a bookstore, and then somebody found it and gifted it to me. So I'm the second owner of this book in the last 100 years. So I have it here if you'd like to see it after service. It has tremendous energy. This is an original copy. So yeah, it's beautiful. And then what I would also like to share is another quote from Emerson along these same lines. And he says, oh, and I do mark this book up. This is my paperback. And this one's probably only, 15 years old. So he says, your genius will speak from you and mine from me. That which we are, we shall teach, not voluntarily, but involuntarily. Yeah? That which we are, we will teach. It's true. And he says, it is no, skipping down a little ways. Oh, and this is there's several of his writings in this book, and this one is called From the Oversoul. And he says, it is of no use to preach to me from without, like you were saying. All the outside, right, is all from the inside, right? That's where our power lies. He says, outside, he said, I can do that too easily myself. Jesus always speaks from within, and in a degree that transcends all others. And that is the miracle. And I thought, wow, that is so beautiful, because I'm such a big fan of A Course in Miracles. Ha, what a segue, huh? So there's something when I want to read to you from A Course in Miracles. And when Danelle asked me to speak, we did get together for a few moments and said this is where we'll be taking material from. And I know you were just shocked when I told you I would be doing something from A Course in Miracles. For those of you that are familiar with it, this is from chapter 21. For those who are not, I just invite you to just really take this in. It's yummy. It's beautiful poetry, actually. And I'll just paraphrase for a moment. It's talking about that inner stillness, that really sweet spot that when we are able to let go of all those distractions and really go into that silence and that beautiful space, we get to hear. Do you ever notice that when it gets really, 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 really quiet, you can start hearing? And it talks about an ancient melody that we're all so familiar with. But you're right, we tend to drown that out with all of our busyness. And I especially liked what you said about perhaps we don't like ourselves very much. And it's an easy way to push things out, right? And how I also agree with you that it's okay and to accept whatever that is so that we can go into that silence, because I promise you that when we're in that love, in that peace, in that joy, that everything outside of us that we were talking about, that you were speaking on, it changes. When I change the way I look at things, the things I look at change. This is how it works. It's from the inside out, not the outside in. Right? It's not about controlling and manipulating and, like you said, the cutting off in traffic and all of that. No, nobody gets my peace. That's my peace. I'm not giving my peace away. So here's what Course in Miracles says, and I just invite you to just close your eyes for a moment as I read, and just get comfortable in your chair. Take a breath, like we did at the beginning with that meditation. Which was a silent meditation, by the way. It was not a guided meditation, and I applaud you for being with me in that. So the writing says, listen, perhaps you catch a hint of an ancient state not quite forgotten. Dim, perhaps, and yet not altogether unfamiliar, like a song whose name is long forgotten, and the circumstances in which you heard completely unremembered. Not the whole song has stayed with you, but just a little wisp of melody, attached not to a person or a place or anything particular. But you remember, just from this little part, how lovely was the song. and how wonderful the setting where you heard it, and how you loved those who were there and listened with you. Now listen, and see if you remember an ancient song you knew so long ago and held more dear than any melody you taught yourself to cherish since. Beyond the body, beyond the sun and stars, past everything you see, and yet somehow familiar, is an arc of golden light that stretches as you look into a great and shining circle, and all that circle fills with light before your eyes. Here is the memory of what you are, a part of this with all of it within, and joined to all as surely as all is joined in you. Accept the vision that can show you this, and not the body. You know this ancient song, and you know it well. Nothing will ever be dear to you as is this ancient hymn of love. And now the blind can see, for that same song they sing in honor of their Creator gives praise to them as well, and the blindness that they made will not withstand the memory of this song. What is a miracle but this remembering? And who is there in whom this memory lies not? The light in one awakens it in all. And when you see it in your brother, you are remembering for everyone. Now I invite you just to open your eyes and just take a moment and just gently look around the room. You can look at me, or you can look at your neighbor, or whomever that is, and see that light in them and recognize that that's the light that's in you. It's the light that's within in all of us, right? What is it? The light that lighteth up every man, woman, and child? Yes? It's within all of us. Yeah. And so I just want to invite us all to go forward today in this beautiful silence that we've experienced here today, this powerful place of love and of joy, and to see the light in everyone, to see it in each other, to hear this ancient melody, and just to remember that what we are speaks volumes. And if anybody finds out what a chalgag is, let me know. Thank you.